Welcome back to Copper Star Precision, the channel dedicated to getting you more points at your competitive shooting matches. Today we're going over the July 2023 NRL22 Course of Fire, and it's a pretty complicated course of fire, lots of movement in this month's course of fire. So let's go over tips, tricks, and strategies to help you score more points. All right, so the first stage in the booklet is called Too Cool for British Rule. Stage description is as follows. On the start signal, engage targets with one shot each from large to small in the following manner and order. Highest reachable rung, the near targets, 55-gallon barrel, the far targets, chair seat, near targets, chair back, far targets, and lowest rung of the ladder, the near targets. It's a 10-round stage. We've got targets at 65 yards and 100 yards, a large and small target. I'll put the target sizes down here like I usually do. I'm gonna probably recommend holdovers on this. There's a lot of movement, and to worry about dialing, you'll be dialing back and forth between the near targets. It might be easier to hold over. My dope for this is about 0.4 of a mil and 1.8, 1.9, so it's about 1.5 between the targets, which should be a pretty comfortable hold, especially on those farther targets. They're relatively generous size. So think about if you want to use holdovers on this stage. And because we have so many different barricades and so many different positions we need to do, try and simplify your gear usage. So normally on a 55-gallon drum, I like the bipod with a slit up with some rear support behind it. Normally on the ladder, I like a flat bag, and then the chair, I usually like a bag like this pint-sized Game Changer that can kind of fit over like that. But using all of those during the stage is going to be very difficult, especially getting in and out of the ladder if you have a bipod on. So what I might do is maybe a 2-bag solution. You could even get away with a 1-bag solution. And I would probably use something small like this pint-sized Game Changer. If you watch the match footage from this past match in June, I really struggled with the seat of the chair because we were kind of shooting at an upward angle. And what I should have done is taken this bag and positioned it so I could get as low as possible and put this here so that I could still see with the scope. So that's definitely something I'm gonna have to consider for this month's match. But we probably won't need the bipod, and we can try it with the flat bag. So ladder rung, I can reach this rung, but it might not show up in camera. So the top ladder rung is the first position, near targets. So I'm already dialed for the near targets. I'm gonna hold over for the far targets. And key with any ladder rung where you're standing is gonna be wide stance so that you get the proper positions that when you lean over, your legs are straight. Just like so. Make sure you're not doing this where you're bending, trying to do a squat. Make sure you're using skeletal support, not muscular support. It's gonna be much more stable this way. Nice wide stance, as wide as you need to get onto the target, come into the rifle. And then with this hand, I'm either grabbing the bag and the rung. Some people kind of put their hand on top, stabilize however you feel like. I'm gonna find the near targets. 2 shots, large, small, super stable. We're gonna transition to the 55-gallon drum. And here, as long as you're on flat ground, this bag, even though it's pretty thin, should give you plenty of ability to find the targets. We're going for the far targets now. Now here, you can do one of 2 things. This is probably a kneeling position for most people. So if you want to kneel, you can kneel with your trigger. If you're right-handed, your trigger finger, your right hand, right knee up, because what that allows you to do is come in relatively square to the target, torso square to the target, and then use your elbow on your thigh or your knee on the back of your tricep. Here I'm using my elbow on my thigh, another point of contact like this. Again, using this left hand, kind of grabbing the weights, stabilizing the rifle this way, finding the target, 100 yards. Remember, I have to hold over here, holding over, 1.5 mils, engage, engage. You could also approach this kneeling with 2 legs if you think that's easier. Make sure you're square to the target again, come into the rifle. This is also very stable. I find that having kind of this little rear support point of contact for me is a little bit easier. Feels like I have more control of the rear of the rifle than just using my shoulder to drive the rifle like this, because this is all kind of in space. By using one knee up, feels a little bit more stable here. Then we're going to move to the chair seat. for the near targets. So we're just gonna go, bolt his back while transitioning. Now if I come in here, it's a little bit of a tight fit, but it will fit. And here I'll probably use a sitting position, like so. Again, kind of using that elbow into sort of the pocket of my knee, or, you know, finding whatever rear support. And since the front of the rifle is supported, I can even use my left hand back here and put my other elbow like this. Extremely stable here, finding the right position, near target large, controlling the breathing, near target small. That's pretty good there. If for whatever reason you have a higher scope mount, rings, or anything like that, you know, you could even try just wedging this in here as long as your barrel has clearance to get it under. So definitely have to think about that. Now coming up to the back for the far targets, this bag does an okay job of balancing on the back of a chair, but if you feel like you need something else, this might be where having this extra bag at the start of the stage might help. I can throw this down, get this nice and stable, and then use this double bag situation. Here I'm in that kneeling position again. Pretty close in height with this 2-bag setup to the same height as here, so we're gonna use a similar tactic. Now far targets, holding over 1.5 mils, engage large, engage small. This is probably the most, for me, the most unstable position. And then we're gonna we can leave that there, come to the lowest rung of the ladder, and here, I'd probably like to have some sort of pump pillow, because on the lowest ladder rung, I always like to go prone and use this as rear support. So I'd probably have this at the beginning of the stage, just drop it by the ladder, go prone here. This is the most stable, your lowest center of gravity, and we're gonna engage the near target. So super stable here. This is probably the easiest position if you can go prone. Your lowest to the ground, lowest center of gravity. So really what it comes down to is kind of simplifying your gear. I know I use 3 bags in this stage, but you can use what you want to use. And the idea is to keep things simple. And probably if I was using all 3 bags at the stage, what I would probably do is the timer goes off, I would just drop this to the side. I would put this over here, because that's really the only position I could foresee myself using it, and then start the stage. So you don't have to carry it with you the whole time. You can kind of leave it in the positions where you're gonna need it. Other than that, pretty straightforward stage. Know your holdovers. I think holdovers are gonna be key here, because it's gonna be tough dialing and moving all these different positions. So with that said, I hope these tips and tricks helped. If they did, like this video, comment down below. And until I see you next time, as always, score more points.